Say your prayers, little one. Don't forget my son to smoke cigars with everyone. On this episode, we smoke the M81 Blackened Drew Estate Metallica collab, and we pair it with the Blackened American Whiskey. I will not call it bourbon. We'll talk about why later. Batch 136. I've got the bottle open, and I am ready to get drunk this morning. Welcome to the show. Burn Line Podcast. The burn line on a well-crafted cigar is straight and sharp as a razor, much like our wit and wisdom. And welcome everybody to Burn Line. I'm your host, John Thacker Jr.
Are you going to have to pay for us sampling that the song in the beginning there? I'm Nick, by the way.
Hi, Nick, by the way. I don't think so, because somebody would have to recognize it as, like, actually being music.
It sounded great. It sounded really good.
Well, you know, I kind of missed my calling as a rock star. All right.
It's never too late. You got this.
It is never too late. We are smoking the M81 Maduro to the Core, Blackened by Drew Estate. We are smoking the 6x52 Toro, and I think we have 3 Vitolas in the shop here. This one retails for $10.75. A box of 20 is $2.15. And a little bit about the presentation. So I really like the presentation. The box is piano black, so it's not high gloss. It's not matte. It's piano black, and it has copper accents, which is, I think, super cool because, you know, black and gold is nice but kind of overdone.
Would you call that copper or bronze?
I'm not a metallurgist, but I would say based on like the reddish hue, I would probably call it copper.
Because I was gonna say bronze until you said copper, and then I was like, oh wait, is it copper?
Yeah, I mean, but fresh polished copper, not like old green copper.
Right.
Yeah. Either way, I'm not super familiar with bronze, to be honest with you, but I think it is a great presentation. There's one thing though that throws me for a loop. And I hold it against Drew Estate because it really bothers my OCD. And if you look at the cigar, it has a medium brown, moderately oily wrapper, which is fairly attractive. This is Mexican San Andres Maduro leaf. It has a footband that says M81 Maduro to the Core in copper, just like the box, and you already know what I'm going to say next, Nick.
The footband is slightly off. It's misaligned. Is that what you're going to say?
No.
Oh, my footband's misaligned.
Yeah.
Which would also trigger my OCD.
That is a little triggering. No, the main band, which is a narrow 8mm band, says blackened in white text.
It should be copper.
It should be copper because everything else here is copper.
Gosh darn it.
So, yeah, that really bothers me. That's the only strike on the presentation. I see that your footband is out of alignment, and I agree. That is just annoying. These are the kinds of silly things that cigar smokers like us care about. For all of you cigar makers out there, this is the kind of bullshit you have to put up when you're putting your product together. But missing out on the color of the text on the main band, I feel like that's a huge miss.
And you get the strike through there too. There's like a black strike through the word blackened.
Yeah, and I love on the footband you have this texture. It's one of those like triangular, square, almost looks South American design,
like Aztec.
Yeah, a little Aztec-y. Yeah. I love the texture. The box has a unique sort of lid that has sort of a 2/3 and 1/3 hinge open, and it hinges like into a presentation. So the one side comes up, and on the obverse says Blackened by Drew Estate with the bridge logo in copper. And then the other side has the basically contents, size, wrapper, Mexican San Andres, binder filler, M81 Toro, etc. And then when you fold it over, it folds all the way down to be like a facing. It has the same thing that's on the outside, on the inside. and it turns into a beautiful presentation box. We will, of course, rate this cigar with our cigar rating system that includes presentation. But so far, super impressed, except with the white lettering on the main bed.
Will you read the little blurb that's in the bottom left corner of the front 1/3?
Yeah, it's really cool. Risen from the fiery volcanic earth of Esteli, Nicaragua, a masterfully crafted Maduro by the torcedores of La Gran Fabrica Drew Estate.
Just a nice, like these are little things, like little touches that they add.
Yeah, absolutely.
They didn't have to do it.
Didn't have to.
But it's nice.
I think
it's
really,
very like Metallica poetic kind of,
It is. Yeah. I think this is I think like the branding kind of goes with Metallica, right? They thought that part through. But the presentation is just killer. I really like this. It doesn't have to be. And one thing that I appreciate is that it is not Metallica branded, right? It says Hatfield Dietrich Drew, which Dietrich is actually the whiskey guy.
Hatfield is the
Metallica guy.
Metallica frontman, right?
And Jonathan Drew, of course, Drew Estate.
Yep.
So it's got their names on it, and that's about it. And of course, it's Blackened, which, is the name of a Metallica song. And it says M81, which stands for Metallica 1981, which is when the band was first formed.
Very
when
cool.
The poor Midwestern Hatfield stumbled into L.A. and met the rich Danish Lars Ulrich, or Danish or Swedish or Honduran, something like that. So I think it is about time for the official cutting of this cigar. The wrapper on the Blackened M81 Maduro is San Andres Mexican Maduro. The binder is Connecticut Broadleaf Maduro, and the filler is Nicaraguan and Connecticut Maduro. So this is Maduro through and through. Triple layer Maduro. And your official cutting, we remind you, as always, to clip your cigar with authority. No limp-wristed clipping allowed.
And bang that shtick on your hand.
And bang that shtick on your hand. So we're in the part of the show where we are holding our stick in one hand and banging it against our other hand. It's a very intimate experience.
I was so shocked. I can't get over every time it works.
Yeah, and it actually increases like your cigar smoking enjoyment significant. Like once you start doing it, you can't go back.
No. Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it.
So these cigars are properly prepared, and it is time for our official lighting of the cigar. And I haven't decided if I'm going to use my triple flame electronic jet or my soft flame butane. I think I'm going to go with the jet. Mr. Nicholas, what are you using?
I'm using Drew Estate stamped, Drew Estate logoed cedar.
There you go. Cedar lining.
John's going to be halfway through his cigar, and he's going to say, and Nick's still lighting his cigar.
Like a caveman over there. All right, let's give these things a toast. And as always, here at Burnline Podcast, we remind you, toasted, not roasted.
Toasted, not roasted. Toasted, not roasted. Toasted, not roasted.
It's toasted. I get it.
So I'm interested in how yours lights, because the primary, I guess, factor that affects lighting and keeping the cigar lit is the priming, right?
Yeah.
But
lower
the
primings burn better. Generally,
Right.
higher primings tend to burn a little more unevenly and more flaky.
Right. But the finish also affects that. And this being all Maduro leaf, Maduro is aged the longest and typically has a higher oil to water ratio, which does affect the way that it burns.
I think a mistake I make sometimes is is not lighting the cigar thoroughly enough with cedar. I think that, it's done. 75% of it's cherried. And then that is, in fact, not ready.
Right. Well, I have my cigar going, and Nick is rubbing two rocks together to make a spark, so he'll join us sometime next week.
John, it seems like you were very excited to enjoy this experience of the M81 and the whiskey, right? Not bourbon.
Yeah, we will get into the whiskey in a minute. Yeah, really excited, and one of the reasons is, and it's partly, I guess, my age. Huge Metallica fan. It's hard not to be a fan if you like, hard rock. How could you not be a fan of a band that like invented the electric 7-string? Like they're making concert quality music. They understand music theory, but they're using it to produce amazing, ballsy, makes you want to go out and commit homicide songs. And I've been a fan since I was a little kid. I've got that imprint in my psyche. And, it's like validation that Hetfield likes cigars and actually made his own. That's like something I would like to do. So, because half of these musicians, like, they pretend they're badass, but then, like, secretly in the background, they're, like, eating tofu and drinking, like, soybean water or something, And it's like, no, here's some guy who's like, give me a rare steak and a fucking Maduro on Maduro on Maduro cigar and a whiskey, and let's hang out,
Nothing wrong with being vegetarian. It's just optically contrary to the metal lifestyle, right?
No, there's everything wrong with that. We evolved to be omnivores, which is why we have essential amino acids, because our body no longer produces them, and we have to acquire them through eating meat. So anyway, now that I've alienated all of our health-conscious listeners, so yeah, really excited about trying this out and pairing them. I'm sure they can be enjoyed separately. Do you need help over there? It seems like you're having trouble building your campfire.
I'm doing really well.
Okay, all right. Just
why don't you sing some more?
Would you like me to tell you? Would you like me to tell you how it tastes while you're waiting to puff on it over there?
Yeah, I'll enjoy it through you. Go for it.
Vicarious cigar smoking, brought to you by Burnline. The ultimate vicarious experience. Well, it's giving off plenty of smoke. And we'll give you a chance to sort of burn yours down a little bit, before we share tasting notes. So we are smoking the 6x52 Toro, as I mentioned. And what I've got so far is a pretty good burn line. There was a vein nodule about 3 millimeters from the end of the foot where I lit mine. And so you can see there's just that little flaw in the burn line, which always happens when your veins branch out. The rest of it is burning very well. It's not a finely finished cigar, but it's also not rustic. I think it's a Chevy Camaro of cigars, right? Like, it's not fancy like a Porsche, but it's not plain like, I don't know, a 2002 Toyota 4Runner on a 3-inch lift with 35-inch mutters, like I drive.
Like the one parked out on the front curb out there?
On the curb out there.
Yeah, right on the curb.
Like, actually on it. Yeah. Just because I can. Yeah, sometimes I have to establish my dominance in the parking lot, make sure everybody knows. The construction so far is pretty good. I'm looking for the seam on the wrapper, and it's like hard to find. Like mine is wrapped pretty well.
I have this weird up here.
Yeah, that's interesting.
The coloration is a little different.
Is it a different leaf? Is it a cap leaf?
It looks like the difference comes before the cap.
Interesting. Yeah, I've got a contrast on the cap leaf, but you can see where the wrapper leaf, comes up under the cap or whatever, and where that part of the leaf overlaps the other part of the same leaf on the wrapper. there's an interesting contrast there. It looks like a surprisingly like smooth, fragile leaf. Sometimes, Mexican San Andres is like a thicker leaf. This one looks pretty fine.
So this was a very highly anticipated cigar when they announced that it was going to come out, and obviously with the whiskey as well. Drew Estate has been running events, Blackened events. We got a lot of cool swag at our event in the Gettysburg store.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, we sold,
Boxes and boxes.
I think it's like a couple hundred
Yeah.
Blackened that night.
Yeah. Yes, for those of you that are wondering, because it is a Drew Estate product, this is not an infused cigar. This is a regular cigar. Or at least I should say it's not infused. I don't think it's regular because Maduro on Maduro on Maduro is not regular. That's pretty rare. So we've got a few puffs in. I'm probably 6 to 8 millimeters in. I guess that would be 7, huh? 6 to 8 is 7. Yeah, I'm 7 millimeters in. Would you like the decimals? What are you getting off of this? Oh, that was my ring hitting the underside of the table. I'm wearing my rock and roll outfit,
Yeah, you're all jewelried up.
Yeah, I'm all jewelried up, man. I'm excited about this, bro.
This is sweeter than I remember. This cigar's sweeter than I remember. It was very, it had a very strong charred taste the first time I smoked it. I did smoke it in a Corona. I think they do a 543 is the 543 is the smallest size that they make this in, and it was like blackened chicken, blackened tuna. That was the predominant taste. That after the blackened aftertaste was the predominant taste to me. Coffee beans, real dark, non-sweet, non-woodsy, non-earthy, just real burnt, but not a bad burnt.
Like a char.
Yeah, char. But this time around, is sweeter than I remember.
So, starting off with the first couple of puffs, first of all, there is a definite meaty component. If you were talking about like blackened redfish or blackened chicken, it's not quite a red meat, but it definitely has like this meaty flavor to it. So that's there and noticeable. I would say that the predominant taste for me starting the cigar out today, if you took some Lincoln Blockade coffee by River Bottom Roasters and you added a teaspoon of sugar to the cup and then you poured it back into the coffee pot and left the burner on overnight, that's what I'm tasting. It's burnt sweet coffee. That's the predominant taste. There's also leather in there. And what I'm calling loam, like it's not earth, like dirt, which you would kind of expect from a Mexican San Andres wrapper. They tend to have a very earthy, dirty flavor, but more like loam, which is a lighter, peatier type of soil.
Weirdly enough, because you mentioned the blackened words in white, it looks excellent in contrast to the rest of the band, the wrapper, and the white ash.
Yeah, it does. It actually looks pretty superb.
It looks good.
Yeah, that's a great presentation.
It looks better. The main band looks better without the foot band.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, it almost looks like the ash got carried up to that black band.
Yeah.
And says blackened. I love it. Yeah. I'm getting good smoke output. I would call this a mid strength. We'll see if it picks up as we go along. Surprisingly, I'm not tasting any spice. I don't have any spice in there. I think this is like this is similar to me to a like a steak. That's what this is really like. Like, how when you cook a good steak, it has a little bit of a sweet flavor, a little bit of a meaty flavor, a little bit of a, but it's, when we say blackened or charred, like it it is nothing at all like Kentucky Fire Cured, smoky charcoal. No, nothing like that.
It's like a gourmet.
Yeah, it's the hint of.
Yeah, right. It's like a well integrated.
Yeah.
Burnt. Yeah, like burnt's the worst word for it.
Right.
But it's also like not inaccurate.
Yeah.
But burnt has a connotation that it's negative. This is not a bad taste.
Yeah, I mean, that's what fancy chefs do, right? They burn your food and they call it charred. No, but it does. It reminds me of a steak, like the way the flavors are going together, and I'm really enjoying it so far. We'll see kind of how it burns along. So a little pop Metallica trivia for Nicholas McCann.
Oh, jeez.
In what year was Metallica founded?
Because you gave the answer, I think, earlier in the podcast, 1981.
Yeah, like it's right on the box.
1781.
No, 1981.
1981.
Off by a couple centuries. But can you name at least two of the founders?
James Hatfield and a guy named Lars from Sweden or Denmark or Honduras.
Lars Ulrich.
Ulrich.
It kind of sounds like a South American name. Yeah. I think he's Panamanian. And then of course there's what I forget. Anyway, so as you can tell, we're like deep hardcore metalheads.
The
And
Napster music streaming service.
yeah, like he's the one that basically shut it down.
Really?
Yeah. What a dick. That was after they went all corporate and released songs like Fuel, which it annoys me that I really like that song because it was like in that little 1990s. Hey, let's sort of hop on the Pearl Jam Creed bandwagon, or whatever. But they found their music again, so tip of the hat. And Saint Anger. That was another one that came out of the corporate years. That was actually pretty good.
I'll give you three guesses. You can try and guess my favorite Metallica song and the only Metallica song I can name. I'll give you three guesses, and I will buy you a certain certain single stick of The God of Fire if you get this right.
Okay.
Three guesses.
Ride the Lightning.
No.
Damn it.
It's a longer song in time length.
One.
Yes.
Ha-ha! Got it! Hell to the yeah. I mean, that's a really good song, though.
I love that song.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying, though. Like, they produced real music. You might not like the genre, but, this is not your fucking 3 chords auto-tuned bullshit that they put out nowadays and call rock and roll.
Yeah, it's quite excellent.
I mean, you could literally, like, a symphony could play these songs,
Yeah, there's, thoroughly musical talent ingrained in there.
They're using, like, 7th suspended chords and stuff like that, like real shit.
Have you seen them live?
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
Have you seen them live?
Yeah.
Is it cool?
It was super cool. It was like a bucket list type of thing. It was down in Houston. It's just the everything around it really sucked. Like the traffic in Houston is just shoot me in the head awful. And then we get there and there's like some cool people, but then there's a bunch of retards that are like,
Jesus.
60-year-old, rockers that are like, probably taking substances they shouldn't and trying to sing along. And I'm like, no, let them sing. Let them sing. You're not good at this. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of typical. It was a little sanitized, it wasn't like, I think it would be cool if it was like out in a field somewhere. It would be a little more like, of a metal experience. Right. This was like a really nice, expensive arena and like, and all of that. Like, so it did kind of miss that, like raw edge metal kind of experience. This was more like, hey, everybody that likes our music is now older and has a lot of money and we're going to take it from you.
I was going to say, look, if you see the Red Hot Chili Peppers now, you're not going to get, they're going to try and give you the same energy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're looking at the stage and you're like, these guys are 55. Why are they doing this?
I think that, and this was a few years ago, but I think Metallica brought the energy. That was the best part. Like the music and the show on stage was fucking awesome. And Hetfield, he's still doing, sliding on his knees and all that. I mean, it was freaking awesome. Unfortunately, like, the stuff surrounding it was a little bit, like I probably wouldn't go again because it was such a pain in the ass, but it was worth it for once.
Did they have like a, I don't know, like a, I don't want to say costume, like Kiss? Did they have like a go-to? Like, it seems like a lot of leather would be in their wheelhouse.
Yeah, they were wearing like jeans and like one of them had it was like a cut-off leather shirt with fringe or maybe a vest. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Like
I'm looking at this guy in my head right now.
Yeah, like totally. When that like biker rocker thing comes to mind, like that was it. I gotta say though, like Hetfield with his short hair, I think he looks like more badass and more metal than when he had his long hair. For whatever reason, maybe it's his face shape or something. But he looks like a guy you wouldn't want to roll up to, in a dark alley. Which is, kind of cool because he's really just a pussy musician. So, all right, so we have some tasting notes from this M81. I'm about an inch in. It is definitely a mid-strength. I might be getting a little bit of something out of the spice rack on there. It's not spicy. It's not peppery. But there's something in there, paprika or something. Other than that, it hasn't really changed. It sort of tastes like chewing on a charred filet mignon so far. And let's take a look at this whiskey. So I've got this blackened whiskey, and they call it American Whiskey on the website. And this is a bourbon type of whiskey finished in black brandy casks, which is an interesting choice. Brandy is a spirit that is distilled from red wine. And I think that brandy is the best spirit to actually pair with cigars.
Brandy's different than cognac?
No, cognac is brandy.
Okay.
That has been distilled from grapes grown in the cognac region of France, and it has to be distilled in the cognac region of France. And that is why I am not calling this blackened whiskey a bourbon, because while you can technically call anything a bourbon, you cannot call it a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey unless it has 51% corn in the mash bill and is, of course, from Kentucky. This is not from Kentucky, so I'm calling it an American whiskey. But I think that the choice of finishing it in black brandy casks is very interesting. This is a 750 millimeter bottle. On the band around the cap, it says batch 136, which is a cool touch. It really probably doesn't mean anything, but it's a cool touch. It gives it like that, small batch flavor. Like this is a bespoke, custom whiskey instead of what it is, which is mass produced. There's a lot of this whiskey.
They say you're special. Here's your number.
Yeah. It's very accessible, right? This is not a cigar that you have to like find online or something. I'm sure you do if you live around the globe, like our global audience that's listening to our podcast does.
Shout out to all the South Koreans.
South Korea, whoop whoop. Nice. It is a 750 milliliter bottle. It is 90 proof, which is a little bit higher. Like your industrial strength, what I call industrial strength, whiskeys are typically 80 proof. 40% alcohol. So this is a little bit higher. The bottle, I think it's really sharp because it's a straight cylinder. There's no taper. There's no bow, no concave or convex. It's a straight cylinder, and then it's almost just square across the top, leading into the cylindrical neck. So it's a unique-looking bottle. And then it has what almost looks like the audio waveform.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, and maybe it is. That would be a cool story.
Yeah, like for one of their songs.
Yeah. In black, and then with the white lettering blackened. The only, I guess, branding thing here is there's no copper. It's all white and black. You could say that the whiskey is kind of copperish.
Yeah.
But it's a sharp looking bottle, and I'm looking forward to sampling it and then also pairing it.
The blackened on the bottle and the blackened on the main band of the cigar are the exact same.
Yes, identical.
Strike through, white lettering. You just can't, on the cigar, you can't tell the the music wavelengths.
Right. I don't see that branding on the cigar packaging, that sort of music wave shape that's behind the lettering. So we're giving ourselves a nice healthy pour in the snifter glass here.
Oh, I can't wait to do take the whiskey in, blow the smoke out at the same time.
Oh yeah,
whiskey.
We learned all kinds of stuff our last pairing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to smell the whiskey. And for those of you that are not familiar with whiskey tasting, you want to smell it with your mouth open, and that just keeps the alcohol from sort of searing your taste buds. So it has a sort of a light fruity smell, along with like that sweet corn that you sort of expect from like a bourbon type of whiskey. And looking at the legs, it's not very thick. I've got some adhesion there, but it seems to be a fairly light consistency. And I'm going to go ahead and give this, I guess I would call it medium gold. It really does have kind of a copper tone once you pour it out into a glass, which is kind of cool.
Shout out Copper Tone Sunscreen.
Copper Tone Sunscreen. Hashtag not sponsored yet. Let's give this a sip. Oh, wow. That's really interesting. All right, so I brought some air in and then chewed it. And it has like a base that is very sort of traditional bourbon. It has that honey and caramel, which kind of comes typically from the aging process with your 51% corn mash bill. I think the surprising thing here is the finish on the swallow, like the aftertaste almost. I would describe as apricot or dried peach flavor, which is interesting. So let me give this a second sip and see what else I can suss out.
I was gonna say on the first one, I didn't get a whole lot. I don't know if it's I gotta wake my palate up or if it's confused because I'm already smoking a cigar, but I didn't get a ton from that. A ton of like distinct notes. John's like super intently tasting this right now.
Yeah, I would add there is a mint. It's not like spearmint. It's like if you had mint leaves drying in your kitchen and you walked past, kind of thing. And then that what is that spice that's like maybe allspice or clove, one of those two. There's a little bit of that in there as well. So very interesting. Definitely a bourbon. I think the black brandy finish is probably what's giving it like the dried fruit and clove taste, I would guess. In your typical charred oak barrel, you're getting like a caramel spice, finish from bourbon. And I think finishing it in the brandy cask is what, kind of adds that extra flavor. You're still getting, I'm still getting the caramel. I'm still getting the oakiness, because it is bourbon. Like it was aged in charred oak, but then it was finished in black brandy casks. And I think that's where like the fruit and spice comes from.
It's like the whiskey's like a nice reprieve from the Maduro cigar.
Yeah,
it's a much different. They're not similar. I would not say that the flavor profiles of the cigar and the whiskey are similar. I would say that they are, maybe not opposite, but competing.
Yeah, I think that as we pair this, the big question is going to be: do these compete or do they complement? And I don't know if you remember the Cohiba Weller pairing, but they were also different flavors, but the Weller actually like completely changed the cigar. Like I would smoke that cigar with Weller all day. Yeah. Without the Weller, the cigar was kind of a weird cigar. I think it had I think it was competing with itself. The flavors were. So I don't know if the alcohol blunting my palate helped or what.
Right.
But I think it is time to pair these. So let's do the puff and then drink and then puff, and then we'll do the one where we slam it.
Yeah.
Kind
that's my
of
favorite
see.
one.
Yeah. Let's see what we experience here. So we're going to puff, sip, puff, and I am retrohaling this smoke. Okay, no more smoke in my mouth. Now I'm going to take a sip and another puff. Interesting. Yeah. So for me, when I took the puff and then the sip, for whatever reason, the puff significantly blunted the whiskey compared to when I was drinking it first. But then when I took the puff after, I think that the whiskey on the palate brought out a different, like, I think it made this cigar smoke more spicy.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the exact same experience.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. And I'll tell you, here's why it's cool to me. So, we're not ready to kind of give our final verdict on this cigar, but being over an inch in so far, it is a one-note cigar. So it's not a bad note, but it's kind of like chewing on a charred filet mignon. That's how I would describe it. It has that sweet, but it's like the sweet of marbled fat, not the sweet of like sucking on sugar cane. And it's got the char of like a really hot George Foreman, not a char like a charcoal briquette. And that sort of meaty flavor, and a little bit of leather, but leather comes from a cow too, so it's kind of like burnt cow. But it doesn't it hasn't changed so far. And adding the whiskey into the mix, now all of a sudden I'm tasting like these spicy notes, and I think that helped really. I don't think it helped the whiskey, ironically.
No, yeah, it became individually more obsolete.
Yeah, I agree. Like the whiskey really took a hit there.
Yeah.
Like all of the little nuances I could taste went away, but the cigar really enhanced all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
It's almost like the cigar overpowered the whiskey, but not in a dominating way, in like a Batman Robin kind of way.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's almost always the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but not here, man. This cigar definitely like took the upper hand with authority pretty quick.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Oh, do you hear about this bottle? They apparently blast Metallica music when they're in the barrels.
Really?
The entire time.
Huh.
That's what the rumor was or is.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I wonder if that like kills the yeast and bacteria or something.
Increases angst.
If you play Metallica in front of your house plant, it turns into a devil plant and Venus flytrap.
Plant carnivore.
Yeah, plant carnivore. So, all right, well, why don't we do the other tasting style? We're going to take a big mouthful of smoke, and then we're going to slam a shot of this whiskey. And last time, that was super fun, so I'm looking forward to this. Holy shit.
Wow.
Okay, so the big difference here for me was the sweetness that came out when I did that.
Yeah.
Like there was a burst of really sweet on that was cool. What else is cool is I've got my cigar smoke in the snifter, and it's like smoking this whiskey. So
That's awesome.
yeah, this will be interesting to see how that turns out. Like dipping a burnt steak in your bourbon.
All right, I got to tell you about this. So they've coined the term sonic enhancement. Sonic enhancement is the process of using certain sound wave frequencies to affect the spirit inside the barrel. When applied properly, the sound wave actually causes the movement of the barrel and the liquid inside. This movement increases the interaction between the liquid and the barrel, resulting in a deeper penetration of the spirit into the wood.
Interesting. I wonder if that's the sound form that, forms the label on the bottle.
They have let's see. Nice. So they have on the website, they have a link to Apple Music and Spotify of the 81 playlist
Nice.
that they would play, to these barrels. 15 songs.
Serenade your whiskey.
For Whom the Bell Tolls, One's on there.
For whom the bell tolls.
Dream No More, Fight Fire with Fire, Disposable Heroes. There are a couple of the songs on there.
Interesting. Anything from the Black Album on there? Enter Sandman, maybe? Mm-mm. The God That Failed? Mm-mm. Of Wolf and Man?
Eye of the Beholder, Cyanide, I Disappear. For Whom the Bell Tolls, Sad But True, One, Outlaw.
Sad But True is on the Black Album.
Yeah, Sad But True's on there.
Yeah. I'm your truth telling lies. I'm your recent alibi. I'm your pain, open your eyes. I'm you. See, like, Hetfield should give me a call. Like, I could totally go up on stage and rock it out with him.
The Black and Burn Line podcast.
The Blackened Burn Line podcast. I mean, shit, like, our colors are pretty close.
You just need to strike through on the burn line and we're good.
Hell yeah. So, I guess our initial takeaway, I will say mine, is that pairing this really elevates the experience for the cigar. I'm definitely getting more taste and flavor and enjoyment out of the cigar. I think pairing it kind of blunts the whiskey. I think if I wanted to like drink the whiskey and experience, I would just drink it without the cigar. But considering this is a cigar podcast, I'd say that's a pretty good pairing, right?
Yeah, excellent. It's like I don't know, it's almost like they intended for these to be smoked and drank together.
Yeah.
I wonder what was finished first.
I don't know.
Or it'd be interesting to know if the process was simultaneous.
Right.
Or, like they said, all right, we have the cigar, now let's make the whiskey, or vice versa. It'd be interesting to know about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely get more sweet and spice when I combine the cigar with the whiskey. And I enjoy that because without it, and of course I smoked the cigar ahead of the podcast by itself, and it's not like a fabulous cigar on its own. It's not bad. It's a good cigar. But also in the Toro, you're 2 inches in, in an 8-inch cigar, and you're tasting the same thing as when you started, and it's kind of like, it's not bad, but I am a little bored at this point, right? Throwing the blackened whiskey in here definitely improves my experience with the cigar.
My burn is great. My ash is holding very well. I am of the terrible habit that I don't ash my cigar ever. When it happens, it happens. So,
and sometimes it happens in my lap.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. More often than not, actually.
No, but that is impressive. I will say a couple of things there. One is the whiteness of the ash, right? This is properly aged tobacco. And, as a Maduro, you have to age it a certain amount of time. So I would expect that. When you have the slightly greener, grayer ash, that means there's more ammonia and stuff in there. Newer leaf. This is definitely. And I've ashed my cigar, and it's like white powder, which, again, that's a aged cigar. The leaf has been aged quite a bit. It's off-gassed, all of those chemicals that are present in the tobacco leaf. And, yeah, both of our burn lines are great. The construction seems to be, really professional. And that ash is impressive. I like that.
I just took a photo with my iPhone 12, but the oil congealing right at the tip of the burn line.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Wonderful.
That is beautiful. Yeah, we got to start an Instagram or something. We should talk about that. So the wrapper is delightfully oily. It's not over oiled, right? But it has enough oil when you look at it. And like I said, this is not like a super fine wrapper, but it's definitely not rustic. Like, they put some effort into this, and it presents well. And I think it matches like the branding, And there's times, even on this podcast, where we've mentioned like the branding doesn't match the actual cigar very well.
Yeah.
In this case, I think it all works together very well.
Yeah. I mean, so far this has been a knockout experience. Truly. I think this is
Righteous dudes.
So it's interesting. People ask me, "What do I think of this cigar?" And I've told them from the second I smoked it that if this is what they intended it to be, they did an excellent job.
Right.
Because I've noted that it's been a one note, charred, these sort of things. But if that was their intention, they hit the nail on the head.
Oh yeah.
If they wanted 3 distinct transitions,
Right.
they fucking missed the mark.
Right.
But
right.
if this is what they wanted to do, then this is a great cigar. And it depends on whether or not if it's your palate.
Right. Yeah, and I think if you're a Maduro guy, then this is going to be an enjoyable smoke. If that's the kind of flavor you like. But I think pairing it with the whiskey is a great call. Yeah. And now I'm curious, the finishing in the black brandy, to me, definitely changes this whiskey. I'm fairly familiar with bourbons, and this has like a clove, allspice, and apricot or dried peach sort of flavor notes that you don't typically get with a bourbon. And I don't know if that specifically is what's interacting with the cigar. But once you pair these two, the cigar takes on like a different life of its own, and gets super interesting. I would also recommend, if you're going to pair them, to go ahead and smoke a good inch of the cigar and get that flavor and coat your palate or whatever, and then see the difference, because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with bourbon or whiskey, but I am familiar with red wine cask finished bourbons. I have never heard of a brandy finished or brandy cask finish. Have you? Is this something that they do often, or it's more few and far between?
It's fairly rare. I believe Angel's Envy is finished in brandy casks. I've seen some like sherry cask finished scotch. Now sherry is like a saltier, it's not as sweet as a brandy. To me, it's more on the salty side of the palate. So because of that, it's actually a great finish for like a Speyside or a Lowlands scotch. If you finish a Highland scotch in sherry casks, it almost turns it into a Lowland scotch, or it gets it closer there.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. So like, I'm not a huge fan of that, because if I'm going to smoke a cigar with a Highland scotch, I want the Highland scotch. Otherwise I'll just get a Speyside.
Which one's peaty?
Peaty?
Yeah.
Well, really the Lowlands is peaty and the Islay. The Islay though is the one that has the brine. Because it's a fucking island, so it's more salty.
Sea feeling.
Yeah.
That coast.
Yeah. It's like you took a bunch of seaweed. Honestly, it's like you took a bunch of seaweed and threw it in your whiskey. That's what it tastes like to me.
Wrung it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lowlands kind of tastes like iodine, like medicine. So I'm into that sort of thing, Lafrogue and Ardbeg and stuff. I know a lot of guys gravitate towards like the Highland Scotch, which is more fruity, but I like my medicine, so.
What is it? Ardbeg has Wee Beastie?
It's got some Wee Beastie.
That's one of their lines, right?
Maybe.
Okay. Maybe it's Kraken. Do they have one called Kraken?
Kraken is a artificially colored rum.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not a huge fan. It's okay for a rum, but I hate adding color to your spirits, and just like I hate adding flavor. Like I want it to be like aged and pick up the flavor, like the natural old fashioned way. Don't infuse it. Don't, fucking like cherry vodka or whatever. Come on, man. Like, I'm not an 18-year-old sorority girl.
Not dissimilar to, our preference in cigars.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like infused cigars. I was surprised that I didn't hate that Kentucky Fire Cured. Like, I felt like there was there's an event where that's a cigar I would smoke, like campfire, something like that. But probably not too often, because it did wreck my palate. Like, I had to stop smoking for 2 days, and like let my palate recover from that.
And you're a big fan of the state of Kentucky too, aren't you?
Well, I lived there for a while,
yeah.
And I'm familiar with the bourbon industry, and I like the industry. definitely more familiar with bourbon than other types of spirits, which is kind of ironic because my spirit of choice for pairing with cigars is brandy. The benefit of brandy is kind of the fruitiness, and it's like it's distilled from red wine, so you have like all of the aspects of growing something in the ground, that comes with wine, and then you have the distilling process. But to sort of drink it properly, you warm it up. So the brandy glass is designed to get maximum hand exposure to the glass. So a lot of brandy glasses don't have a bottom, and you cup it in your hand, and they're thin. They don't have like that thick bottom to the glass, and it absorbs the heat from your hand, and that releases like those floral scents and stuff.
Weird.
Yeah. So if you like a colder drink, that's when you go to bourbon.
Right.
And so that's where, I take it a lot of the time with my cigar pairings because, in the summertime, like a warm alcohol is okay, but, 120 proof cask strength bourbon with an ice cube in it, it's a little more enjoyable when it's 90 degrees and 90% humidity like it is in the valley here.
Right.
Sometimes. So,
that's yours? I've seen you with one that's like a half circle with like a Celtic cross on it.
yeah, that's a brandy they sell here. I can't pronounce it. It's something French. La Douche or something like that. All right, so we have had a chance to sample this M81 Blackened cigar from Drew Estate. And in case we forgot to mention, we are bringing you the Burn Line podcast, not live from the Hot Box, the smoky back room where deals are struck and fortunes are made at the Blanco Cigar Lounge, Union Cigar, Hanover, Pennsylvania, USA. And it is a beautiful, slightly overcast. Looks like it might start raining 82 degrees outside. That's a fine spring morning. And we've also sampled this Blackened American Whiskey, which I really like. Like I'm looking forward to actually drinking the whiskey on its own. I think the cigar really takes authority here when we pair it, which is a little interesting because it's often the other way around. But I think I'm going to do some just straight drinking of this later on because it is an interesting spirit.
Can you touch on the Dietrich? Or the Dietrich. Apparently he was with Maker's Mark. Mm-hmm. Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct. So I mentioned earlier our annual collab, with my W-2 employer. That is with Maker's Mark. So they have their private selection program, and anybody can do this if you have enough money. But, Maker's Mark makes a pretty good bourbon. So Dietrich was with Maker's Mark, and I'm not super familiar with like his life story or anything.
Yeah.
But he's the guy that worked on this with the whole crew, and apparently Drew and Dietrich and Hatfield, like they all worked together on all three. The only thing that confuses me is like on the blackened bottle, it says a blend of straight whiskeys finished in black brandy casks, and then it says remastered by Dave Pictuel. I can't read it because it's like a signature. So I don't know who that is. I did my Google research, and I didn't actually find anything because on the Blackened website it talks about Dietrich. So I don't know who this guy is, but shout out because it came out pretty cool. So thank you, Dave.
That's like the forefront of the bottle too. I mean, that's in.
Yeah, it's a signature right on the
Declaration
front.
of Independence kind of.
Yeah, it's a John Hancock right there on the
Yeah.
front of the bottle. Dietrich's name's not even on it, so I don't know what's going on there.
Oh. It looks like, unfortunately, Dave Pickerel has passed away. He was a legendary master distiller and blender and a co-founder of Blackened. But apparently, I guess during the process, he unfortunately passed away. That's a nice tribute to, I guess, their dear friend, Dave.
Yeah, that is. Well, rest in peace, Dave. We appreciate the enjoyment and the spirit that you brought us, and we will drink to your health. And I'm going to go ahead and get some more whiskey because I enjoy the cigar better with the whiskey. Am I talking too loud? Have I had too much to drink? I don't know. Have I?
I don't know.
I guess we're about to find out. Yeah, Whistle Pig. So we are drinking the bourbon. They also make a blackened rye, and I guess it has green instead of black, which, green is a traditional color for rye. I don't know why. A lot of people have green rye bottles. I don't like it. I think blackened should have a blackened fucking label. But I haven't tried the rye. For those that don't know, a rye mash bill has less corn in it and therefore is less sweet. Other than that, it has a similar profile to bourbon. Whistle Pig is like the Grand Poobah of ryes, and it has the price tag match. It's definitely worth it. I would go to like a high-end bar where they serve it and get you your shot for $20 or $30 and see if you like it. I like the Old World. The Whistle Pig Old World is very good. And then if you like it, go ahead and pick up a bottle. But, you're not getting into a bottle of Whistle Pig for much less than $200. Oh, wow. So, yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's a long-aged and really delicious rye if you're into ryes.
So I guess the rye, the blackened rye was inspired by their album Ride the Lightning.
Ride the Lightning. I get it.
That's what it's called. Yeah.
Ride the Lightning. Yeah.
But they also have a blackened collaboration with Willet. I don't know. Willet Distillery, Low Rye.
Yeah, Willet has I think, a much sweeter bourbon. So the Willet Pot Still Reserve, and it comes in that super cool bottle that's shaped like their pot still. Awesome. I took one of those one time, and I turned it into a lamp. So in my day job, I work with glass. So I got a glass bit and drilled a hole in the bottom, and there's actually a slot on the side of the bottom of the bottle. And there goes the ash. 2.5 inches right between the legs.
It was so big it made a splash noise on the floor.
It made a splash noise. That did. But the bottom of this Willet bottle has a slot, and so I was able to run a cord under the bottle, and it stays flat on the table, and through this hole, and I ran it up through the bottle, and I put a lamp socket on the top in a shade, and I sold it on Etsy for like $350 or something ridiculous.
That's got to be the longest neck I've ever seen in a
it's cool, right?
Bottle.
Yeah,
I'm like who's the guy on Joe Rogan that Joe's always like, hey, yo, man, can you like look that up and put it on the screen for us?
Mm-hmm. Oh, and there goes my ash. So it's ashing well, but you'll notice like when the ash falls, like it just falls to powder, and that's because the tobacco has been aged, long and appropriately. And I appreciate that. Whether or not this stick hits your wheelhouse, they did a good job on it. They aged the tobacco properly. I'll say this, it's a Maduro wrapper. It's not the darkest Maduro I've ever seen.
No, in terms of color, it's not the darkest.
Particularly for San Andres. I've noticed that Mexican San Andres, if you age it the same length as like a Nicaraguan leaf, it gets darker than the Nicaraguan leaf does by about a shade and a half, something like that. So that's good. Like it's not an oscuro, and they didn't overdo it.
Like weirdly light for Drew Estate too.
Yeah, it is.
Obviously, Drew Estate has a breadth of facings and different wrapper colors, but like the T52 and number 9 are quite dark.
Right,
and like
they're much darker than this.
The original Nica Rustica is very dark as well. So they didn't. I don't know if it's like just the way that the tobacco turned out. That they were like, oh yeah, this is good. We like it this way, or not. But they have darker cigars in terms of color.
Right. Yeah, like the entire Liga line is like 2 shades darker than this. I agree with what you said. Like if this is what they were going for, they fucking nailed it. Yeah. This is like grabbing a filet mignon off of a very hot skillet and like chewing on it.
Unfortunately, I wish I could get that through more of the consumers' heads in the industry. Is that they don't make cigars for you. You smoke the cigars that they make that they like. And so, like, people are like, ooh, that's disgusting. Why would they release that? Which I've never actually heard. But based on some of the reactions I've heard about the cigar.
Oh, I've said that about acids.
Oh my gosh.
Number one selling cigar. Are you kidding me? The fuck is wrong with America? Yeah, so no, it's a great point, and that's what is beautiful about the cigar lounge. And of course, here at Union Cigar Hanover, we have a really excellent selection. I would almost call it curated, with some great high-end sticks, like that God of Fire that you owe me. And the Ashton, what is that Ashton? The
ESG, the Estate Sun-Grown.
Yeah, the Estate Sun-Grown. Yeah. Your Padron selection, the Cohiba Red Dot in Nicaragua, 2 Cohibas that actually smoke. But then also, lower end and affordable, accessible cigars. And you can just smoke your way around the humidor. If you like it, buy a box. If you don't, okay, well, that one wasn't made for me, And one of the things that I see cigar newbies do is purchase cigars online. I'm not a fan of that because I want to keep the cigar industry going, and I'm not going to do that buying online. So I'm a big fan of supporting your local brick and mortar. But the other thing is, you don't know the quality, you don't know the construction, you don't know how it was humidified or kept, and you don't know if you like it, right? And typically, you're not saving much if you're buying individual sticks, right? If you go to your actual cigar lounge, you can look at, feel, slightly squeeze the cigar, unless it's not wrapped in cellophane, and we talked about that in our etiquette section a few weeks ago. But you can tell the quality of the cigar, and if you want to smoke it, but then you can just smoke one, and if you don't like it, put it down and buy a second one, and you'll kind of figure out your palate as you go along.
Yeah, and you're gonna get the ability to ask someone else in person if they like the cigar or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, that's a great benefit because 99% of the stuff that's written about cigars on online retail websites is fluff.
It is, and sometimes it's like literally copy and paste from the manufacturer's website.
Which is like, do your thing, I guess. You're selling 1 million cigars a year. Like, if you don't have the time to write 25 words about the cigar, then, whatever. But you just have to take it for what it's worth. It's not like Nick McCann didn't sit in the lounge and smoke 3 of these and write that.
Right.
This is like a cookie cutter copy and paste description of the cigar, and it might not be accurate to what you think it is, or it might not be helpful to you in your decision making process.
Yeah, it's press release. That's what it is.
Right.
It's typically press release. Yeah, and especially if you develop a relationship with your local tobacconist, they'll get to learn some of your profile. And I've had it many times where I've come in and somebody said, "Hey, have you tried this one? Based on your buying habits, I think you'd like this one." And 9 times out of 10, they nail it. So that's another benefit that you get from working with an actual human, in a store. Well, I will tell you, I definitely feel much more rock and roll with this pairing. I mean, I kind of want to go out and like burn a building down and maybe beat someone to death. So I feel like it's doing its job. But now for something completely different. Let's play a little this or that.
The Burnline podcast does not condone murder or harm of any other humans in any way. Thank you.
Yeah, our lawyers told us to say that. So, Nick, you go first. This or that. Throw something at me.
Oh, man. Okay. Metallica or Black Sabbath?
Jesus fucking Christ. You had to go there. Ah, shit. I got to say Black Sabbath. I know it's heresy because we're like doing this whole collab thing, but man, yeah. I'm sorry.
Be looking out for a Black Sabbath X Drew Estate collaboration coming out.
Oh, jeez. If Ozzy fucking got with somebody and did a cigar, oh, yeah. I'd be all over that, even though it's British. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's make this controversial. Chevy or Ford?
Chevy. I like the... I don't know. I like the Camaro. I think Camaro over Mustang.
And there you have it, folks. So if you want to come into Union Cigar Hanover and heckle Nick over his choice of Chevy over Ford, you can find us right here in Hanover, Pennsylvania, and feel free to give him hell.
Do you have a stance on iPhone or Android?
iPhone. Okay. Let's go cigar rated. So, soft flame butane or torch butane?
Soft flame inside, torch outside.
Oh, good call.
Physically,
I like that.
physically outside on the surface of the earth.
Yeah. No, that's a good call. I like that one. I feel like you qualified your answer though. Like,
Yeah, it's not all right, soft flame.
there you have it,
I'll
folks.
eat the wind. Straight cut or V cut?
Straight cut all day.
Straight cut or punch?
Straight cut.
Straight cut.
Straight cut. Yeah, I'm a straight cut guy. I mean, I can straight cut pretty much anything. A deep V cut is okay, but a lot of the caps, weren't meant for it. And I think we had a podcast before where maybe Keith deep V cut a cigar and it went past the cap and it fucked up the cigar, right? But a shallow V cut, like I don't get the surface area. And I think the punch is like designed for a narrow ring gauge box cut or box press, I mean.
Yeah.
And I will use a punch for that. I've got a flip out punch on this Perdomo Electronic 3 Jet that I often light up with. # not sponsored yet. But that's about it. I mean, I can get away with a straight cut on anything. I can't get away with a V cut or a punch on anything.
Right.
So that's kind of why it's my default.
Someone was making fun of me the other day. I can't remember who it was. Well, and I was doing my cedar routine, lighting up a cigar, trying to enjoy my cigar. And someone said, "Oh, the blenders are making fun of you right now. The blenders in the factory are making fun of you right now because you're being so delicate with the cigar. They bite the cap and
Light it with a Bic.
Yeah, right. And so it made me think. And I have bitten the cap off of cigars before. I like to rip if it's a larger pigtail. I like to rip the pigtail off and not cut it after that and smoke it that way.
Yeah, you can twist that pigtail right off, and it just leaves a hole. That's kind of cool.
They say that I heard Francisco Amante of DBL Cigars say that they'll put the pigtail in their mouth and chew on it while they're smoking the cigar.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I know some of the habits down south, are really different from ours. And I was shocked when I was out there in Nicaragua, and here's this guy who's like a patron of the cigar world, and I won't tell you who it is, but he's got one of his cigars and bites the cap off, pulls out a Zippo, sucks the flame right into the cigar, and puffs away. And somebody, kind of made like a comment or whatever, and he was like, "Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar," and I fucking cracked up.
Wow.
Fucking Sigmund Freud his ass.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, I think we love to romanticize the cigar. I've talked about it on this podcast before. Like, this is a work of art.
Yeah,
like, I have like a tear streaming down my face.
Yeah.
And like these guys are down there, like they're like, "All right, you smoke half of it, you eat the rest."
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you go to France and they're just killing a bottle of wine at lunch, and they're like, "It's just wine."
Yeah,
like, yeah. Yeah, we in America like our expensive lifestyle vices for sure.
We think it makes us look cool. We think it makes us fit in with the rest of the world, and that's okay. If you like what you do, keep doing it, as long as it's not hurting anyone else or animals.
Speaking of lifestyle, I'm thinking about starting a podcast called Babylon. And it would just be like
all right, so BABBLE space on or
no, like the city of Babylon.
LON.
Yeah, like that. And it would just be like all about like, Ferraris and expensive scotches and cigars and high-end prostitutes, and just like vicarious living, for folks, just
Watches.
to feel good. Yeah, timepieces.
Yeah.
I've got my Martini Racing timepiece on right now.
Let me see the face. Oh, the racing stripe. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. It's a little too big. I mean, it's good looking, but I'm not a small guy, and it kind of looks big on me, so I feel like it's not for everybody. Oh, what you got there?
I have a Seiko a buddy of mine gave to me for being in his wedding.
I have the quartz version of this that my wife got me when we were engaged. She got it for me for Christmas. This is a Seiko 5, which is a very nice watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a similar one that's quartz, and it's currently broken, and my wife's going to get it repaired for my birthday, but it costs more to repair than like the watch cost.
Yeah. Right.
And they told us that it's just buy another Seiko.
Yeah.
But it has sentimental value.
Right.
But what I like about this is the watch face is the right size. This is like a 38 millimeter, I think.
Yeah. It's not too big. It's not, and this watch isn't super flashy.
Yeah.
It's just metal band, very nice.
Yeah, nice stainless steel. nothing too over. Like you could wear that with a suit and be fine, but you could also wear it with like basketball shorts and nobody would bat an eye.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's very, very nice.
We got to get, there's a jeweler down the street here from us at Union Square, Hanover, called Garrick Jeweler, that a lot of our staff and customers.
Hashtag not sponsored yet.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'll give them a call this week and see if they want to do anything with us.
Yeah, we should totally do that. Yeah, they've got a good reputation in the community. I know that
for sure,
especially for timepieces.
Yep.
Yeah, my collection's not as big as it used to be. With my suit, I typically wear my Tissot Powermatic 1853 skeletonized watch with the carbon fiber face.
That's Swiss.
It's Swiss. It's about 5 millimeters thick, so it's very svelte. My daily wear is my retired Seiko Pro Diver, which is black and gold, black and yellow, really. Yeah, very sharp looking, but the warranty on the solar panel that runs it is 7 years. So after 7 years, I retired it from diving because I don't want to die underwater because my watch went bad and I'm misreading it. So my replacement was a Bremont Supermarine S500 with the blue band, and that's a pretty sharp watch.
So they made that watch, the diver watch. Like, I've heard that term paired with the word watch, but they make it for people to dive underwater.
Well, sometimes it's just a sales gimmick.
Okay.
Now, the Bremont Supermarine is ISO tested, and Bear Grylls wore one to go to the Arctic or whatever. Like you can actually, like, this is a real watch. It's not like, not to disparage anyone, but like Rolex doesn't make watches that are actually designed for diving. They'll call it a dive watch. Their Submariner, I would not wear it to dive. It's not ISO certified.
Yeah. In the name of safety.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more of a dress watch that is waterproof.
Right.
Breitling's okay. It's still similar. And then when you get into actual diving, you got your nitrogen-filled watches for deep diving and, actual divers. It's kind of like runners. Like they wear Garmin's, they don't wear like Apple iWatches or something because it's actually designed for what they do, kind of thing.
Yeah, the iWatch is pseudo fit.
Yeah. It's like casual fit.
Right.
The Bremont though is an actual adventure watch. If you're willing to break a $6,000 or $8,000 watch, but I like it, and you can wear it with a suit, and you kind of just look athletic. It's not a dress watch, but you can pair it with a suit because it's a fine watch.
It's so interesting too because when I start my day, I think about what I'm gonna do. If I'm working, I think about what my job will entail that day, and if it's like we're putting together a new lounge, I'm moving furniture all day, right? I'm not bringing this Seiko 5 out.
Right.
I'm like, I want to protect this thing at all costs.
Yeah.
And so, but to dive or like to hike, I never would think to put this on. But you're telling me they make watches like with that in mind?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they do. And, some of your professional dive watches, you kind of can't wear them because they're designed to fit over a wetsuit or a dry suit. So
that's insane.
Yeah, the band is like an extra inch long.
Wow.
They're big and clunky. You can read them underwater easily. You actually charge them with nitrogen because of the compression when you're underwater. That's a real dive watch. Like you can't do anything but dive with it.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
All right, so I think it is time to rank this M81 Blackened cigar by Drew Estate. We are smoking the 8x52 Toro, which is available here at Union Cigar Hanover for the low price of $10.75. And we have our 5 dimensions of the cigar that we rank on a scale of 1 to 10. And so why don't we go ahead and rank it on presentation? Nick, what are you thinking?
We hit it at the beginning of the show. Gorgeous. I was with you on the primary, the main band being like weird. The lettering is weirdly white. It's the standalone, but then as the ash kind of creeps up towards it, it looks phenomenal. And then you see the bottle and the lettering on there is white with the black background. They knocked it out of the park. I'm gonna give it a 9.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. I give it a 9 as well. This would be a 10. I think if the Blackened was also copper. The branding is just very well done on this. Somebody put a lot of time and effort into this, and that piano black color. It's not gloss black, but it's not like flat black either. Outstanding. So I will rank this a 9 on presentation as well. So let's talk about price. This is an 8-inch by 52 Toro. Comes in at $10.75. I'm sorry, 6-inch by 52 Toro. 8 inches would be a pretty long fucking Toro. Comes in at $10.75. Nick, what are you thinking?
In one word, reasonable, for sure. Reasonable. It's not underpriced. It's not overpriced. I think it's right where it needs to be. And I'll give it an 8.
8 for Nick on price. I also rank it at an 8. I think $10.75 is very competitive. You know, cigar prices have gone up, and a sub $11 cigar, you know, is kind of where like a sub $9 cigar was 2 years ago. So I think it's competitive on price.
Yeah, and looking at the retail perspective from it, you know, a Toro for $10 is like for some reason in my mind that's just that's like the notch. So this is, you know, give or take 75 cents. We're good.
All right, and moving on to construction. Nick?
Excellent construction. I had 2 swaths of ash. The second one is still on the cigar right now. The first one lasted 2 inches maybe and fell to the ground. It burned well. I touched it up one time. Very little running was going on. This is an 8.
8 on construction for Nick. So I will say similar. It's burning fantastic. I touched up my cigar once, but that's because I was talking a lot and needed to touch it up, and it caught right back up. There's no canoeing. The burn line is great. The ash is great. And then one of the other things I look at in construction is there separation or air bubbles under the cap? And I don't have that as well. I'm going to give this a 9. Great construction on my cigars. And that brings us to flavor. So, Nick, tell us about the flavor.
It's a 10. It's a 10 because I believe that they intended to make it taste like this. With the, you know, thematically, with the blackened bit, with the pairing of the whiskey. I think that they set out to do something and they tried very hard to do it and they did it very well. So it's a 10. It might not be a 10 to my palate, but as far as intentions go, absolutely 10.
All right. So some notes on the flavor. The first thing I'll say is both cigars that I smoked have one flavor all the way through. And nothing necessarily wrong with that. I do get bored, though, on a 6-inch cigar that doesn't have some change in notes as I smoke it. I'm going to go with an 8 on flavor. I think that I agree with you in the sense that I think this is what they were trying to do. And it definitely has that, like, charred. And I'll say this. It did change. Initially, the meaty component was lighter. But it turned into, like, a charred steak as I went along. But it's still, like, basically a charred meat flavor. So I will give it an 8 on that. And then overall experience. And, if you want to distinguish between the cigar by itself or the cigar paired with the bourbon, go ahead. But Nick, what are your thoughts there?
For me, I think the cigar by itself, sitting in a room alone, is a 7. Yeah, I'll give it a 7. I think it's not, it's not exactly what I want out of a cigar. If we want to asterisk and say that with the whiskey, it's a 9.
Yeah. I think that's a good call. I had for experience a 7 as well. It's a good smoking experience, but I did get a little bored, and it's kind of a one-note cigar. So I've got a 7 there.
It's like if you love to sit by yourself and smoke a cigar, by all means sit by yourself and smoke a cigar. But if you want to get together with a bunch of metalheads and smoke the cigar and listen to Metallica and drink the whiskey, I think you're gonna have a far better time.
Yeah. So I've got a total score of 41, and Nick, you have got 42. And we say no decimals, so this comes in at a 42, which is our highest ranking cigar so far. So shout out to Drew Estate and this collaboration. And as always, we thank you for joining us on Burnline Podcast. This has been the M81 Maduro by Drew Estate with the Blackened Whiskey. Goodbye, everyone.